We supplied 2 sets of pumps for the Influent and for the EQ pumps on this project. So this is the scope of supplies. Each pump you have duplex stations. It comes with the elbow, the intermediate guide rail bracket that sits on the top, a mini cast, and then a socket. These do have some spare parts on it, which are basic repair kit. There's an extra O-ring and then a impeller screw. So really the basic repair kit. I guess if you ever had our shop repair it, you can also send that in with it and just let us know. We'll reuse the kit you have unless you're going on site. The basic repair kit does include bearings, mechanical seals, and an O-ring kit. Yep. So that's kind of the more simple thing, and then we just have startup and testing. There's different kind of style pumps we have, or both of these applications are going to be the submersible pump. If you reorder the pump, it does come with this guide cloth sliding bracket, and then the discharge elbow is permanently installed. This one has 2-inch guide rails that are 3/16 stainless, Schedule 40, and the upper guide rail bracket. And then, of course, it's the pump, which is a motor end, and the pump end, which you'll see on the next slide. Manufacturer's warranty, it's a 5-year prorated factory warranty. So in the first 18 months, it is 100% coverage on manufactured defects and parts. If it's a seal leak, usually that's not going to be covered because that's something most likely that got in there and like hit the seal on the pump. Typically, though, we do have them, which is not very common. It's something that would be a bearing issue that would be relatively soon. That doesn't take too long for those to kind of show up when you grade job. These are kind of just the typical guidelines for our pumps. They're rated for liquid temperature up to 104 degrees, which I'm sure this is fine. Typical pHs. Now these have a 3-phase motors. This is a serial number for each pump. They're also on the pump tag. It's on the top of it. It's a 7-digit number, and the first 2 numbers are actually the year it was produced. As you know, this is your pump. You have the discharge sliding bracket. Pumps on this are the 3085s, which are the EQ pumps, and then the 3127s, which are the Influent pumps. The Influent pumps have actually a little more flow. The EQ pumps are relatively small. Each pump has the lifting cable, power cable, the rotor stator, which is part of the motor, the bearings, seals here to help this part from having the liquid get in it, the volute, this is the liquid end, I'm sure you discharge section. The FLS sensor in this.
Here's the bearing holder here, so it'd be like on top of this thing.
And that will be if there's any sort of moisture in the system, it will open a float, and then that closes actually a magnet that creates resistance in the control cables that come from our pump. It's 300 ohms of resistance for the...
It's on failure.
Yeah, on failure, so there's moisture. So that's kind of how we're monitoring it. And then this has motor sensors that will open if the motor gets warm. And that's the same sort of thing. That they're both actually in series. So you only have 2 cables that get hooked into the mini cast.
So it's a thermal protector inside the windings.
Yes. Yeah. These don't have cooling jackets on them. They're media cooled. We only really have them if it's required for that. But with this, the media, typically with the flow rates, is enough to keep the motor cooled and not require it. We have the grip lock seals, which are considered active seals, kind of like you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with Chesterton seals that you can run dry, and they have a groove in them to help keep solids outside of it. The 3085 actually has an adaptive impeller on it for the EQ pumps. So the adaptive impeller has a little kind of pin kind of something that allows it to shift up and down. So if you do have a larger solid that comes through, the impeller can open up to let larger solids come through. Each pump has the shaft, the impeller, mechanical seal, oil bearing housing, main bearing, motor, stator, and bearing support. Bigger deal for this is it's protected with 3 thermal switches. Then it has the floating leak sensor. And then that's what, if the motor does have a thermal, the switches open up and then they will reset and the pump will continue to run. If you do ever see something where you get a thermal, it opens up and closes within a minute, that's probably not a valid thermal because it needs to wait for the motor to cool down.
So it doesn't have for the leak seal, it doesn't have old-fashioned 2 prongs. If water gets in there, makes the connection, it's actually a float.
No, it's not a conductive sensor, it's a float.
Let's see, the bearings, they're 50,000 hours insulated, very typical. And then this is the impeller. So they're the non-clog solids handling. They were designed particularly for flushables and rags and stuff that get into wastewater. Like the face of them is flat. It basically keeps anything from getting attached to it. So it's not a sharp edge that materials get attached to. And there's the flat leading edge too that get the flat, so you don't have rags get stuck to it. So it basically, if stuff comes up through the middle, the impeller will spin, and it pushes it out towards the discharge. Kind of. They're not chopper pumps, but they will chop if they have something come across it that's hard to chop. And then my favorite feature of our pump, which will meet to flight a little bit, is the hard iron, because I do think that is extremely durable. Like, you can have applications if you have old piping where you might see some level of cavitation, and it really takes a long time for you to see it on the impeller. Because we have installations where they're like, we don't want to touch the suction side ever. Like, I feel like we've all been there, because it's a can of worms. So you're starting to see like lower flows or something like that. You probably do want to check the clearance to make sure the gap's small enough that you're not getting excess flow through it. We have a startup report that we're going to fill out. A 8-year warranty period begins on the day of startup. So today is going to be the beginning of that period. And then we do electrical checks, or we're basically making sure everything lines up where we expect it to based on the factory test reports. Pump operation general guidelines. Submergence is critical for these. These are relatively low MPSH pumps. We typically like to just have the handle covered on them, but they do have the ability to run down for like brief periods of time, and we do some clean outs and stuff like that with some of our programming. It is something that you definitely can get away with these if you need to, especially if you're bumping it. I just wouldn't run it for long periods of time just because these don't have a cooling jacket on it, so it does need the media to cool it. This is just kind of more discussing the FLS sensor that goes back to the mini cats in the panel. These pumps are FM too, so that is actually part of the warranty, having the thermal sensors. And periodic maintenance on these, like a yearly, just kind of getting your eyes on it to make sure everything looks okay, make sure the impeller spins all right, 3,000 hours. They do have overhauls, checking the cable, making sure there's not dry rot, making sure the impeller spins, inspecting the oil level. If you're seeing any issues with the pump that's not performing, we're going to again go and show you if you have any alarms what to look for. And then this is just kind of some like examples. If you have erosion in the system, what an impeller would look like. Cavitation, you see like little holes. The easiest way to kind of troubleshoot if it's that is just modifying the water level in your tank to see if it goes away if the MPSH is satisfied. And again, the electrical checks we're going to do, check the amps on the pump. The EQ pumps are fairly consistently around like 2 amps based on the factory test. What were the Influent pumps?
9.4, and it was 6.9, so it's low.
And then every pump does have the amps on the nameplate. There is a maintenance if you do want to do a 20-point inspection. If a pump doesn't start, most of the reason would be if there's a relay or something inside the panel. That's where most of that troubleshooting would be, since we've done startup. Or if there's maybe something clogged in the impeller and there's something preventing it from rotating.
Yeah, then it would amp out.
Yes, it would.
Is it resettable fuses?
Yeah, these have
Well, those are
VFD?
VFDs.
Okay.
And
There's a
then
setting in the VFD.
pump runs, but the motor protection trips. So that would be more related to the actual like fuses. Protection on the VFD set up to cover the full load amps. A lot of times you can do full load amps plus like 10% too because of the safety factors in case you do get occasional spikes. Typically it won't run in that high of a level. It's going to show up how to check the mini cast. So if you do have a moisture alarm.
But the green power
Here, come over here. Green power.
Yep.
Now it should be a leak seal leak here. It's an over temperature right here. So if you have a flashing light, it means that there was a fault, but it's gone now. To reset it, you just hit the reset button.
Okay.
They do auto reset though right now.
Check the FLS. It's in the pump. So you need to go to thermals number 5 and 7. It's on the socket actually. Finding numbers on the socket itself. By number, it's up here. The 1525 ohms. This is normal. On the seal fault, it goes to 330 ohms.
But if you ever see it and it's in thermal, but it's reading 1525, let me know. We'll get you a new mini cast. It is not common they have issues, but every now and then we'll see when it just kind of gets stuck in thermal and we replace it. It's tiny wiring inside of those, so who knows if it just had a tough trip to wherever it ended up. So. And then we can go look at the EQ pumps quick. Duplex station, so you do have the 2 pumps. They pump over here to the valve out, and then they pump back to the Influent Pump station. These are the 3085, so they're the smaller pumps. They're pretty low.
Was it one pump here, one pump in that tank?
Yes.
A gate between these 2 tanks?
This dividing wall.
Yep.
And then there is a valve that allows overflow between.
This one has the power. This one does have local handoff HOA switches.
2 is here. That's number 2 and that's number 1 for some reason.
That little bapper up here, that's your valve to the equalizing.
And then this is the same thing where the mini caps are inside. You have the door mounted sockets instead of DIN rails.
5 and 7 are up here.
These kind of shock you. I don't know if these are.
1527, which is about normal. 1528 sometimes, 1530.
Yeah, and these can be wired for 24 volt or 120 volt, so that's why just be careful because you don't know which